And welcome back to a fresh episode of the Business Growth Show. First episode for the new year, 2021. And excited to be joined by Peter Hopwood today. Peter helps speakers, high performers, high-performing professionals, corporate teams, TEDx speakers, and accelerator startups all across the globe to build acute speaking and presence skills, creating impact where it matters. Peter, a very warm welcome, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Good man, good man. So looking forward to this, Peter. We're going to be talking all about how we can learn to speak virtually with confidence and, most importantly, with impact. And I think it's a really timely episode, especially as the UK has just gone back down into full lockdown, sadly. So we're all stuck in. We're probably doing more Zoom, more Skype, more video conference calls than we could ever have imagined. So this is a very timely conversation, sir, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of gold nuggets.
Hopefully, yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm lucky. I'm actually in Croatia, in the south coast of Croatia. We're not in the same situation as you guys in the UK. So yeah, you're right. I mean, we've already been through it once. Yep. In the first part of the year. Now it's there's no excuse really to do it well. So let's dive in.
Yeah, man, looking forward to it. So we'll jump straight in. We're going to be talking all about both video conferences. Perhaps we can talk a little bit about in-person speaking. So when we are able to do that again, how we can bump those up for our face-to-face meetings with prospects, with clients, potential customers, and the like. But before we get to that, let's talk about the mindset side of things, Peter. So before we even get into our video calls that we've perhaps got booked in, let's talk about how we need to prep, what we need to think about, and how we need to get ourselves ready to feel as confident as possible.
Listen, what you've just said there is exactly what we need to think about at the beginning, before we do anything, before we've even prepared, before we've written one word or a couple of sentences about the talk we're going to present, or whatever we're doing in terms of speaking in public. We really need to get into the right frame of mind, because up here, what happens up here when we're feeling good, or we're feeling focused about what we're going to say, we know the purpose. Yeah, we know why we're doing it, what the objective is, how we want people to feel after we've spoken. Once you've got that clear, once that's done, once that's kind of sorted out, everything else is kind of shaped towards that. So what your body does, in tune with what you're thinking, what your voice does, again, in tune with what you're thinking. A little example, for example, right now we're on this podcast. I can hear you're feeling good. It sounds genuine. But I'm sure over the last 100 and something, how many podcasts have you done so far? How many?
I think we're about 106 or 107, something like that.
107. So 107 podcasts. I'm sure at least one of those you weren't feeling great. You weren't feeling perhaps up to doing it. You like what you do. You're passionate about it, but maybe something's on your mind. There's something going on with your family, with your children, for example, or something, sure. Another problem, or one child. Or in your marriage, or whatever it is, that will affect how we're feeling. So if we're not in the right frame of mind before we speak, getting ready, it's going to affect how we sound, how we feel, how we move our body, and everything is kind of tuned in towards that. So it's actually getting into the right frame of mind well before, so you know your objectives and you know your purpose, and then just before you begin, really get into that feeling of, listen, I'm gonna be sharing something cool now. I'm going to be sharing something that's going to make people feel X, and X. Focus on that. Don't focus on anything else. Focus on that, and then that will come across. So however we're feeling, that will come across. For example, again, you're on holiday. You've just come back from holiday, so you're tanned up. You're feeling good. You've had great food, great weather, lots of sun. You come home. Those conversations you have with people, maybe not when you come home because it'll be raining and really bad weather, but sure. Generally towards the end of your holiday, you're feeling good. You're in that zone, and those conversations you have, and when people see you. Again, when you get back to work, people will be looking at you, go, "Ooh, you look good. You sound good. Things are going well for you because you're feeling good." Opposite to that, you've got a cold and you're a bit groggy, or something's on your mind.
Yeah.
again, those conversations you have with people, even on a Zoom call, over the phone, face to face, those are going to be, they're disrupted, connected with how you're feeling. So your feelings up here really do leak out, really come out in your voice, primarily in your voice, and naturally in your body movement as well.
Got it. So just to touch on that a bit further, Peter, you raised a really good point. As you mentioned, whilst I sound like I'm on top of the moon, sometimes we all have bad days, not just me. Sometimes it's through lack of sleep with our little one. Sometimes we've just got loads of work on at the time, or whatever it is outside our perhaps control. There's always going to be things that prevent us from feeling 100%, unless we've just come back from a nice sunny holiday with plenty of cocktails, plenty of beers, or whatever we like eating and drinking, and all that good stuff, which is usually my case. So let's say we're perhaps a bit tired, perhaps we've had back-to-back calls, but we've got a really important meeting at the end of the day. It's on Zoom, it's a video conference, and it's a deal that we really need to land, or it's a meeting we really need to go well to progress our sales, to progress our business. How do we flip it so we're not sounding like we're about to fall asleep and we're really ready for tea and perhaps a snooze, to we're actually sounding alert, we're sounding happy, we're sounding ready to rock and roll?
Great question. Exactly. I mean, most of us are feeling like that. Some of us feeling like that every single day. But hey, but yeah, the idea is, before you begin, you have to remember, that how you feel is going to affect the way other people feel. All right. So the first thing to do is really take some time out, just a couple of minutes, even if it's like 2-3 minutes. Let's say 5 minutes before you begin, or 10 minutes before you begin. And just try to be as calm as you can. Breathe, start breathing, just gentle breaths, deep breaths. Okay. And then start thinking about, again, okay, what is it I want to achieve in this? What do I want the other person to feel when I'm speaking to them? Okay. And that will start to get you to feel calmer, more confident as well. Say to yourself, what are the adjectives that you want people to feel, or their perception of you connected to an adjective? I'll ask you now, for example, right now on this podcast, if somebody's listening to this right now, LinkedIn Live or wherever it is online, recorded afterwards, when they look at this podcast and look at you, Sam, what do you want in terms of adjectives? Tell me the adjectives. What do you want them? How do you want them to describe you? Tell me.
I would hope upbeat, professional, energetic.
Okay.
Hopefully knows what he's talking about, but I can't always say that's true.
Okay, so those three are kind of like visual appearance, in terms of the energy and tone. Okay, let's move on towards how they perceive you as a professional. Give me some more adjectives.
Yeah, perhaps interesting, perhaps
knowledgeable,
reasonably knowledgeable. Unless we've got a guest like you.
You're putting yourself down, Sam. You're putting yourself down.
Yeah,
reasonably knowledgeable, kind of.
Yeah, I mean that's why we bring in guests like you, Peter. You can share your insights.
I like that. Good move. Witty. I would put in there witty somewhere. So credible, knowledgeable, open-minded.
Yeah.
Wants to help people to learn. So just by saying those, so when we're having this last conversation now, these few phrases we've exchanged now, just by saying those things and hearing those things in your head, probably, Sam, that makes you start to feel those things more than you did before. Yeah
exactly. I guess it's in the back of your mind, and until you've actually raised it, then, Peter, I'd never thought of it properly. So whilst I guess you have those things in the back of your mind you think you want to come across, but until you actually start saying it to yourself, look, I want to come across as X, Y, and Z, I want to be perceived as X, Y, and Z, then it's actually a nice exercise, because I'd never actually thought of it that way.
Say those things to Sam. Say those things to yourself before each episode. I mean, it'll change slightly. Those are the sort of main ones, I would say, in terms of every episode. But when we talk, whoever you're talking to, in terms of the guest and the topic, you can kind of like navigate it towards that as well. So again, the self-talk in your head is the loudest voice we'll ever hear. So we need to listen to that, but also, be kind to ourselves. Tell yourself the good stuff. Listen, 100. Listen again. Those days where, Sam, perhaps you're not feeling that great, and you're not feeling that. You're feeling a little bit self-conscious, perhaps, and we all do that. Doubt ourselves sometimes. Remind yourself. Listen, 107 episodes. Is this number 108? Maybe, I don't know. 100 and something episodes. That's a mean feat to do. You've kept this going. Okay, you've got a lot of people listening, a lot of people engage with you, a lot of people like what you do. So you just have to sometimes tell yourself all these things, and they will come to the top of mind, and then you're ready to move on with that. Because often, again, small things, the negative things, if we've got 50 things great about us and 2 things that we really hate about ourselves, those 2 things often will stick out in our minds. So we're kind of, by default, we stick with the negative stuff. So we need to focus on the good stuff. Focus on the good stuff. Focus on how we're feeling. Focus on how we want to be perceived. Take those deep breaths. Calm down. Really feel ready for the conversation you're going to have, the Zoom call, and really show the other person, through things like eye contact, through your body movement, through your voice, that you're really listening to them, really respecting them, really interested in them. And that will help bring down the nerves and get you into the right mood. It's all about the mood.
You're making me feel really calm now, Peter. And I feel like what you've said can be transitioned not just through to video calls, video sessions, but also to a whole bunch of things, whether it's sales calls, whether it's cold calls, whether it's just reaching out to your existing customers, anything in sales or business that you feel a bit apprehensive about.
Absolutely.
If you think about how far you've come, so you linked it back to my podcast, but if you're running your own business, perhaps your successes over the last 12 months, perhaps how many customers you've onboarded, perhaps how many deals you've won, or how successful your marketing's been, or any of these little feats over the last 12 months, you think yourself back to those rather than negatives, and you'll realize, well, there's a heck of a lot of things I actually achieved, more than I perhaps pay myself credit for. And then I guess that'll give you the little bit of buzz, a little bit of uplift that you need before you jump in our case, to the video session.
Absolutely. And again, the way you started this episode, for example, which you do on nearly every episode, it's upbeat, it's energetic, it gets people's attention. And you need to do that, because remember, nobody owes you their time at all. Right now, people that are listening to us are with us right now. We're grateful because they're listening to us. They've got 101 other things they could be doing. But they're spending their time with us, and we have to always remember people's time is so valuable, and we need to be grateful for that. And to show that gratitude, we need to give them value. We need to give them something that will make them stay with us, something that they will get by the end of the conversation that we're having right now, for example, and get them excited about what's gonna happen. Which you did, you did beautifully at the beginning. How did you do it at the beginning? It was a nice intro. Hi, once again, here we are at the episode, blah, blah, blah. And then you talked about a little bit about who the guest is, what he does, and what he's going to share. So that within the first 60 seconds, people were kind of like ready, and they knew what's coming, and hopefully they were kind of excited in a way about what's coming. But it was good at the beginning because people could decide whether they're going to stick with you or not. So they see us, they look at us, they look at how we move, they look at our body language, they look at what's behind us here, what's behind you as well. But the biggest influencer is the voice. So what they hear, the sounds they hear, is the biggest influencer. So people could jump onto this episode live on LinkedIn. They'll see stuff, they'll see what's in front of them, but the voice, your voice and my voice, and this conversation we're having, the sounds that we're sharing, these are the things that influence people the most, whether they think we're confident enough. Those words you were talking about earlier on, the adjectives, more about credibility, knowledge, you as a professional, that all comes through the sound of your voice, the energy, the tone, the pitch, the pace. the volume. So all those things together in terms of the voice are so important. And this is right. This is live now, so people can see this visually. But when it goes as a podcast episode, the only thing people have to go by is our voice. So it's really important to make sure that you're working on your voice, that you're building on how you sound, understand how you sound, and try to improve that process.
Got it. Some great tips there, Peter. So moving this forward away from mindset and getting into the call itself, which we've touched on a bit there in terms of how we sound, which is very applicable because we won't always have our video cameras on, although we'd recommend that for most sessions. It's like we said, it's gonna help you greatly, but it may not be always be the case. So when we've perhaps kicked off our call, we've started off with a bit of energy, we've perhaps given a bit of value about what we're going to share during the call and what we're looking to cover, the goals, objectives, and what we want to accomplish on that conference. How do we ensure that we're coming across as confident when we're during the call? And how do we ensure that we're maintaining our potential customers or our existing customers' attention? Because I've seen it so many times, even though I think I'm really interesting at the time, I'm probably not. And they're flicking at their smartphone, or perhaps they're having a bite of their sandwich, or they're having a bit of their drink. How do we maintain?
Bite of their sandwich. I like that. Yeah, bite of the sandwich. Oh, cheeky bite.
Cheeky little nibble. How do we maintain their attention throughout the call?
Yeah, no, good question. So to avoid those cheeky little nibbles and those swigs of beer perhaps, or whatever drink they have, it's all about getting their attention and keeping their attention. Now, there's one thing I've been doing since the beginning, and I'm sure you've been doing the same thing as well. Where my vision is, where I'm looking, I'm constantly looking bang at this camera lens, right? So I could be looking elsewhere, and naturally I'm kind of as a human being, we tend to try to look at ourselves. So when we see an image, we look at ourselves. So I could be looking at this, I could be then looking at you, but the impression that gives doesn't give that impression that I'm actually really listening to you, and I'm really not that interested in you. So by looking at that lens and trying to keep your eyes on the lens, you don't have to keep it on all the time. So sometimes when you're thinking or downward thinking, the eyes go down, for example, you can do that, but then go back to the lens, because when we look at somebody, it's almost like we're showing them respect. We're showing them that we want to listen to them. We're showing them that this is the target of the person we're looking at. And naturally, if we in the real world, if we just keep staring at somebody, it does become kind of a negative target. But on Zoom, for example, it's a way of really showing people that you're listening to them. It's a hard kind of concept to get used to, but once you've done it a few times and remember that, it actually makes a big difference. So looking at the lens and making sure your eye contact is as much as possible through that lens there. Also, another thing I've been doing as well, you can probably see, well, not probably, definitely you can see the screen here, my hands, what my hands are doing. So I use my hands a lot in terms of using it as an illustrator, illustrating certain things. If it's big, if it's small, if it's great, if it's not so great. So using my hands and letting people see what my hands are doing is a good thing. All right. So I've got them up here so you can see them in the frame. If I was to do this face to face, probably they would not be this high. Right, but in the screen, it's kind of okay to do that. And sometimes just looking at my arms now, so I'm using kind of like up till there. I've got that area there to really use my hands. I'm not throwing them all around all the time. I'm just simply using them in a way that actually gives you an opportunity to see what they're doing, and also connecting them with those keywords and those phrases that I'm using as well. So eye contact and letting people see what you're doing with your hands actually makes the person looking at you and listening to you become more engaged with you. Okay.
Gotcha. All right. So for anyone just tuning on audio only, essentially Peter was moving his hands, but making sure they're within the frame, so within your video frame. So using those gestures to kind of get across what he was chatting through. So good points, Peter. Moving that forward, if we're doing these things, if we're looking into the camera lens, we're making solid gestures with our hands to put across what we're saying, but our viewers, our audience, our prospects are still losing attention. Perhaps we're 15, 20 minutes into a half-hour session. Is there anything we can do to perk them up at all? So when perhaps it's dragged on a little bit, we're getting towards the end, are there any ways we can uplift their attention as we feel it start to drop?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the biggest difference between a virtual call, a virtual meeting, an event online on a screen, as opposed to real life, is that the engagement level has to be higher. We have to get people's attentions quicker when it's on a screen. So anything on a screen, we need to get, just think about it, your mobile phone, your laptop, your TV, whatever, however big the screen is, we need to get people's attentions quicker. All right. So it's really important to do maybe other things that actually gets people's attention. So I'm already doing it with my voice, the way I'm speaking and the way that I'm sharing my messages, and my tone is going up and down. I've also got a melody there as well. I'm projecting my voice through the lens here. I'm looking at the lens and I'm moving my hands. But there are many other small things you can do to really get people's attention. And one of those things is the chat. So we've got, on Zoom, you've got a fantastic tool, which is very simply the chat area. So asking the people that are on the call to be involved, and try to do that from the beginning. So one idea is at the beginning, before you've even started, when people are joining the call. Some are early, some are late, some are really late. But, people are there, joining on, and you see them as they come, you see their images, you see the little boxes appear up in the names. Some are muted, some are not muted. Get them, if you can, to get their screens on, if possible, because that helps them, it helps you, and it helps everybody to see who's actually there. All right. So we can see people, and that actually makes the speaker or the person leading the call feel a lot better, because he can see, or she can see, who's with them. Right. Then ask them perhaps a question. So as we're starting this call, as people are joining us, just one main question. I would love to know exactly where you are in the world, and maybe, or another question, one thing that's made you smile today. One thing that's made you smile today. 3, 2, 1, bang. And then you get people to write in what that is. And then up on the side on the chat, what happens is people put those in. And because you've put yours in, you've put your answer in, you're more intrigued to know, or curious to know, what other people are going to say, right? So they pop up theirs, and then again, conversations can start around this, but it keeps people engaged. Another thing is using the area, using the environment that you're in, to really boost up that engagement. In a conference hall, all you have is your voice and what people see. But in a room like this, for example, right now, here we are, I'll tell you what, right, 3, 2, 1, and you can do this as well. Hopefully you can. I'll give you 20 seconds, or as quick as you can. Grab a book that you've read recently, or a book that you really love. Okay, if you can do that right now for me, can you do that?
I don't actually have any books. All I've got next, I've got a bunch of trophies next to me. That's about it.
Okay, get a trophy.
Let's grab one. We've got a trophy. I can see you've got a book.
Okay, you've got a trophy. I've got a book. Anyway, if that was a book, that could be a book of trophies. I don't know. But anyway, so I would pop this up to the screen, and then everyone else would pop it up to the screen. And then, so it almost, again, because you're doing it, you're more intrigued you're more curious as to know what other people are going to put up. Maybe there's a book that you've read, you've read the same book. You've got the same book on the shelf. It's a book you'd like to share, or you'd like to buy, or like to read. And then once everybody's got those books up, again, in the chat, it's a nice kind of, I wouldn't say an icebreaker, but it's a way of really engaging people. So you can do that with things. The trophy. Tell me, where's that trophy from?
So this is actually from a few years back, a Sunday league football team we used to play on. So it's something I won probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. So I think it was a 7-a-side football league little trophy.
Great. I mean, that's a really good
in my home
question. That's
office.
a really good question, actually. I'm just thinking now. Yeah, right. Grab something. Are you still with me?
Yep, still here.
Can you still hear me? Okay, I'm back again. So grab something that shows an achievement. Okay, 30
Nice.
seconds, go. Bang, 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 bang. Everyone comes back. It's maybe a certificate, maybe a swimming certificate in your pajamas when you were 10, whatever it is. Maybe it's a cricket, maybe it's a cricket trophy, whatever it is. Can you still hear me?
Sure.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Okay, there's a little bit of problem with the cam, but that's okay. If it goes off, I'll just come back again and keep talking, just like now.
No problem. We can hear you fine.
Good. Okay, I'll try and get back there. There we are. Should be okay. So, whoops. Are we back? We are. Right. So yeah, using something like a trophy, a book, something in your environment that really does get people to see a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your environment, especially if you're a leader. Because we show a little bit of our vulnerability, a little bit of our kind of personal side, which, you know, other people in the team would certainly love to see, because perhaps that's not a side that we often see. Just try and get back there.
Yeah, no worries. We can still hear you all fine.
So
that's the main thing. So, no, those are really nice, quirky ideas, Peter. Something I've not necessarily heard of, and just unusual ways you can boost that interaction. And just like you said, if you're perhaps hosting some kind of online meeting, some kind of online webinar, you can prompt everyone tuning in to grab something, whether it's an achievement, whether it's a book, whether it's something else that pops into your head, just to add that layer of quirkiness. And perhaps people that weren't paying quite as much as attention, once they hear that, like, what the heck's going on? Yeah, I'll probably grab this. And it's just a nice little way to break it up and get people back on track, I guess.
Absolutely.
All right. Good stuff. So we've covered the mindset. We've covered things about feeling confident, how to get yourself in the right positivity, the right frame of mind. We've talked about boosting levels of engagement, things about being aware of yourself in terms of looking at your camera, in terms of hand gestures and all that good stuff. Are there any points to wrap up, Peter, that we haven't yet touched on that are just going to help people boost their online calls, their virtual calls, that little bit extra?
Listen, I think we've kind of covered the main areas, which is, you know, as I say, all about your mindset, getting into the same right frame of mind before you begin, making sure that the frame that you're looking at is doesn't take away any distractions as well. We've got a few things going on behind me here, but hey, they're there. That kind of shows you exactly what's going on here in my environment. But hopefully the focus is on me as much as possible, and also your voice. So again, remember when you're on a Zoom call, when you're on a virtual call, the engagement level is number one. So I know it's difficult, especially when you're doing lots of them, to kind of you know, that's kind of Zoom virtual call fatigue kind of moves in quite quickly throughout the day. But again, try to think to yourself, okay, my body is my instrument, and my voice is what people really are engaged by. So taking care of that, drinking water, for example, having a glass of water or a bottle of water close by while you're on the call. If you feel your voice is starting to get a little bit hoarse, a little bit dry, not at the call but before the call, again, stop talking. Take that glass of water, relax, breathe, you know, take care of yourself, so that when it comes to the time where you share your messages and you're on that call, make sure the engagement is there. Because remember, everybody, again, like I said before, nobody owes you their time, nobody owes you anything at all. So you have to earn that. You have to get their respect. People will judge us. We can't stop that. So say to yourself, listen, go ahead and judge me. It's okay. Judge me. I want you to judge me. Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to give value. I'm going to give you something that's going to make sense, something that you're going to walk away with. Hopefully that will help you. A few tips, few ideas. Right now, we've had a conversation for about half an hour or so, and lots of things have been thrown out. Some things you will agree with, some things perhaps not. But if you walk away with like one or two things that you can say to yourself, listen, I think that's a good idea, I'm going to try that on my next call, then that's what this is all about. We've achieved what we wanted to achieve.
Exactly. That's exactly what the show's for, Peter. I've certainly taken away a few nice nuggets, and I'm sure everyone tuning in has. So with that, I want to thank you very much for coming on, sir. And Peter, please do tell us more about how people can learn from you, how they can connect with you, and the best way to get in touch.
So the best way to connect up with me is LinkedIn. Connect with me, link up, send me a little message to say that you've listened to this podcast, this conversation that I had with Sam. And you can find everything I'm doing there. My website right now is under construction. It should be up soon. But you can find everything I'm doing on LinkedIn in terms of some of the courses I'm doing, the audio course that's coming up as well, and some of the events I'm doing, which you can join in with me as well.
Awesome. Peter, thanks so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Loved it. Let's do it again sometime.
No problem. Happy to have you back on, sir. And if you want to check out more about Peter, it's all available on the show notes over at businessgrowth.marketing. And if you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit subscribe on your podcast channel of choice. We interview business leaders each and every week to provide actionable tips across marketing, across growth, across sales, all to help you grow your business. And once again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.